We have an opportunity to introduce to our audience for the first time Brian Hester. He is the Chester County Administrator, and his is his first time being here on Palmetto Mornings. Good morning to you, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us, sir. So you have a fascinating background. Some of it I knew, some of it I'm just learning right now. So you were involved in law enforcement for like more than 2 decades in Florida. So how does Chester, South Carolina get on your radar as an administrator?
So Chester is really kind of interesting. As I said, I'm a South Carolina native, born and raised here. Clemson graduate. I know you guys, that's a hard topic here. But,
okay.
But anyway, we'll move on. I actually started my career in Greenville with the Greenville Sheriff's Office and was a deputy there. Moved to Florida in 1998, and I spent the next 25 years down there working for St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office. And I started as a patrol deputy, worked my way up through the ranks. I held about every position you could hold in the Sheriff's Office, and I was fortunate enough that my sheriff made me his chief deputy. And so when I retired from there, I had 28 years. And my sheriff was one of the longest-running sheriffs in the state of Florida as well. He was retiring. So people say, well, how'd you get out of that and come up here? Well, here's a problem when you promote up through the ranks as well as when you become the chief deputy and your sheriff retires, you got 2 choices, run for sheriff or find another job. Because a new sheriff, you will not be the second in command and his trusted soul. So my family was still up here. My father had passed away a couple years ago. My mom was alone up here. I had always longed to be back home, but when you raise 5 kids, you can't just pack them up. Yeah, we have 5 kids.
Wow.
Boy.
My wife and I. And so you can't just pack them up and move. And so we had to wait till they were grown, but we were at a perfect time in our life. And I had been working with a headhunter in South Carolina. I call him a headhunter, but a recruiter.
Right.
And I was actually kind of looking at the police chief jobs throughout South Carolina, and she called me up one day back before Christmas of 2022, and she said, I want you to consider this job. And I said, okay, I'll consider it. And so here I am.
All right.
Wow. So you've been the Chester County Administrator for how long now?
For a year and about 4 months.
Okay, a year and some change. We know that there is some change happening within Chester County. We are obviously up to speed about what has happened in the past. So with that being said, you being fairly new in that position, it is an evolving county. So what do you want folks to know about Chester that they might already have preconceived notions about Chester that might live in this area? What would you like for them to know?
I think that probably one of the big things is there's the elephant in the room is Chester went through some really tough times several years ago with the previous sheriff, under a supervisor form of government, the previous county supervisor. Of course, we're an administrative form of government now. And I think that, bad things like that stick in people's head. We got a fantastic sheriff that the governor appointed. He was reelected. He's running unopposed again this time in Max Dorsey. And believe it or not, I knew Max Dorsey before moving here is the interesting thing from my time in Greenville County. And then I think we've done we've got a strong council. We've got a very involved council. We've got a council that's very conscientious about decisions that are made. And I think that we've built since I've been here, we've restructured. We've built a staff. We've brought in some very high-caliber leaders into our organization. And what's really cool about it is they're not just high-caliber leaders. We actually brought people back to Chester that were from Chester that went off and found, work somewhere else. I brought a guy back from Los Angeles, California, an architect who grew up and went to Chester High School. I brought a guy back to run our Parks and Recreation that moved to Virginia, played baseball for Virginia Tech, and now he's running our Parks, Rec, and Tourism. I brought a guy back out of Charlotte to run our fire service who was a captain with the Charlotte Fire Department. People don't leave certain jobs like that, but we built such a great staff, people who are passionate about Chester, people who see where Chester can be. And I think that's really the key is Chester is becoming a very vibrant place. People want to live in Chester, and we're trying to get the growth right.
Well, and I think it says a lot, that you just gave the examples of people who, loved it enough to really want to come back and put their time and energy and to, create that legacy to keep going. I think that speaks a lot for the county and the town itself that, those are some pretty big positions. And those people were doing some pretty important things that now they actually came back and said, hey, I want to come home. I want to come home and be home and do my thing here and be a part of what's going on there. So I think that's very commendable.
So, Brian, with all of that being said, you all are tackling your budget right now. How much is that budget? What does it look like? And what are some of the bells and whistles?
So our budget's approximately about $33 million. Not a very large budget, but again, I think what I want to sort of focus on with our budget is this will be the second year that we have introduced a budget to our county council with no tax increase and an increase in services. And people will say, how are you doing that? How are we keeping a level millage in a time where things are more expensive? And, one of the things I told you I have an accounting background. Numbers are kind of my thing. Even all through my time as law enforcement and the sheriff's office, I had a $110 million budget, and I had 800 plus people there. This one's a little easier to deal with, but smaller budgets are harder to deal with, right? And so
got to make it last.
You've got to make it last. and then with hiring new people and bringing in the caliber of people, how do we do that? And so one of the first things when I came in is we took a hard look at how we were spending our money, where we were spending our money, where we were putting our focus on money. And we did a lot of what I call mentoring with our leadership staff to understand their budgets, know how to track their budgets, know how to follow the budgets, know when they're getting out of whack, renegotiating contracts. I'm a big proponent of take a look at all your contracts, go out and renegotiate those contracts, find better deals, try to get better services or better pricing on your contracts. And so we were able to do that. And I can tell you that probably through just understanding budgets and paying attention to budgets and renegotiation of contract, we've probably saved over $1 million. So again, second year in a row, levelized budget, no millage increase. We've added this year alone, we had a couple of hurdles that we knew we were going into. We had a catch-up, what I call a catch-up cost from raises. When you give raises at a midpoint in the year, you got to pay the full point next year, right? So we had a catch-up cost of $1.5 million. All right, we've tackled that. We've added full-time fire service in one of our districts. Last year we added full-time fire service in a district. We added another full-time fire service in another district this year, as well as we've added another EMS station in the western part of our community. And so we did all that again with a levelized budget.
Well, again, this is just one of many topics where we will continue to look at when we talk about the future of Chester County. Brian Hester in his first interview here on Palmetto Mornings as a Chester County administrator. Brian, this was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
You did great.
It was great.
You did great.
Enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, sir.